Give it up for our Honduras team. All right, I love that video. It's so cool. And that's just kind of a recap of a recent trip that they went on. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what sometimes is called short-term missions or service projects, okay? A line in that video that I absolutely loved is that, right, missions isn't a moment. Did you catch that? What did it say? Missions isn't a moment, it's a mindset. Dexter was paying attention. That's what I'm talking about. Bonus points. Yes, missions isn't a moment, it's a mindset. Another way to think about that is when we go on missions trips or we do service projects, sometimes we can really think about that in a way that like we're just going to like help or make things better, but instead kind of a better way to think about that is that we're going to build relationships with other people. We're going to learn from other cultures, and sometimes that's cultures around the world. Sometimes that's our next door neighbor. Sometimes that's getting to know the people in our backyard, right? Sometimes that is serving our own family. Sometimes that's serving our community. Sometimes that's serving the community next door. It's this idea of we don't just go on missions trips, we want to be on mission all the time. We want to become people who are always looking to serve, always looking to be on mission. So that's a little bit what we're going to talk about tonight. That's why I wanted these three incredible men who love Jesus very much, who just went on this recent trip to Honduras. And this is something that Crosswind has sent teams several times to. Over time, we've been building relationships with the same people. So we're not just going and like, here, we're going to fix everything that we see. And no, we're leaning on people there. There's leaders there who we've built relationship with and we're growing with over time. So I love that we have this relationship, and I'm not going to talk any more about this. We want to talk to them. So I'm going to be asking them questions tonight, and then you'll get a chance to process this in your small groups a little bit. But Blaze, why don't you kick us off a little bit? What kind of work or ministry were you guys doing as a team when you went to Honduras this most recent time?
So this trip, we had multiple things going on. I'd say our primary focus was construction. We put 2 roofs on 2 different houses. We poured concrete floors in 2 different houses. We also provided 50 water filtration buckets to a community of Quiscamote, which is huge because I say the water is probably one of their top reasons for health issues, bacteria and things like that. So clean water is not something that all these families have access to, so to come and provide that is huge. We also, at the end of each day, we would deliver food baskets where we got to meet families that lived within the community, got to pray over some of them, and some of them prayed over us for our generosity and for being there for them and supporting them and fulfilling God's journey. We hung out at MDM with the kids. We done some arts and crafts and things like that during the day.
Oh, that's amazing. So fun. And what I love about that too, just in him talking about how just especially the lack of resources and water, and that's a big reason why we send teams to this area, is there is just a lack of resources for a lot of people. And we can't even imagine that, like not having access to clean water whenever we want, right? Like most of us in the United States have access to clean water all the time. And so we see that in the heart of God too. We see that in Jesus, that he has such a heart for those who are under-resourced, who just don't always have the resources that some people do. And he has such a heart and such a call for us to also have compassion and a desire to help and serve where we can. So that is so cool that that's some of the work we were doing. Wade, what did a typical day kind of look like on this trip?
So I think breakfast generally was at 7, so get up on your own. We would have a breakfast. Some ladies would come in and prepare that for us every morning. I ate some different things that I've never eaten for breakfast before, such as refried beans, but they were delicious. Then we'd leave about 8, and we would all meet up at MDM Honduras, and from there we'd split up into teams. We split up on the first day, and then the second day we all went together, and we would go out and do these service projects, and those would generally take about 4.5, 5 hours. You got to meet some people from around there, so that's when you're actually out there and you're doing some work, or you're playing with some kids that would come up and want to talk to you. And we'd go back, have lunch, play with the kids. There was anything from arts and crafts to volleyball to soccer to
Wade
throwing a
kicked the kid in
football.
the face with a soccer ball.
I did. I smoked a kid in the back of the head. It's, you know, it got him pretty good. But he took it like a champ.
Making memories.
I had a couple issues on the trip. We also laughed a lot, like just the crew that we were on. I mean, we joked and cut up the entire time we were there, but we would eat lunch when we got back. Again, that was prepared for us, and then we'd play with the kids, and then eat supper. We'd come back and kind of rehash our day, and then go back and do it again.
That is awesome. I love that. It is. It's such a way to build community, I think, not only with your own team that's there, but also with the people of Honduras as well and the people you're meeting. It's such a community builder. When we serve together in general, it's such a good lesson. All right, Cameron, what was a highlight of this trip for you?
I mean, really the highlight was the people. Being able to meet, whether it was a kid or it was an elderly person, or all the guys that were translating for us, working with us, you know, the construction crew, those guys can outwork anybody that I've ever seen. And just see the passion that they do what they're doing with. None of them complained about anything. They, you know, hauling all of us around and everything. And it was just the people there. They're not, I made a comment to these two one day. We were riding out in the truck. And I said, I don't really feel sorry for these people. And that sounds bad, but they're just, it's not that kind of a feeling. That you don't feel sorry for them that they don't have all this stuff because they're so strong in their faith. And they're just happy people. You don't see them moping around and being sad that they've got a dirt floor or they don't, you know, it's fine. The kids are happy, they're playing, and that's really the highlight. And to kind of reiterate on the water part of it, that was a big highlight for me too. Just like any of you guys, if you got thirsty right now, you walk right back there to a water fountain or run your mouth under the sink, or you can drink out of the back of the toilet. It'd be fine, you know. But their water, there's a picture somewhere on here of how brown their water is. And it's just full of bacteria and mud. And to be able to give them a filter and seeing all the little kids it's going to help and just everybody that it's going to help was a really huge highlight for me.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think that was just so well said, and there's so much to learn from that. And that's what I love about the way that Crosswind does these churches. And if any, we'll talk about this, but if any of you ever have a chance to do this, it's such an opportunity because it's such a mutual relationship where we're serving others who genuinely need it. Like he said, like you don't even really like feel sorry for them once you get there. There's not this pity because you see this joy and the sustenance that God gives them in their faith that just is mind-blowing. And so I think at the same time, though, like they need those resources. They do need help, and it is a huge gift to their lives as well. But at the same time, you can hear like it's just as life-changing for us when we go and visit and build community with these people who just challenge us to just have this faith and this joy and this trust in God and abundance. It's a really incredible relationship builder. So Blaze, tell us a little bit more about the local community and just the culture of where you guys were specifically at in Honduras.
So Cameron kind of touched on it. San Matias is a small village on a mountain outside of the capital, Tegucigalpa. It's a very poverty-stricken village. But you can't tell it, not in their eyes. They're strong in faith. They're happy people. They're warming people. I told everybody before we got there, and some of y'all have been before, it's the wildest feeling when you get there. You know, you think you're going to feel out of place or uncomfortable. And once you get in the mountain, it's just like you have this overwhelming sense of just being home. Everybody's welcoming, everybody's warm. It's amazing. And there's a saying, and it sounds cliche, but there's just something about that mountain and the way it makes you feel. Yeah, Cameron's got your shirt on, and you just don't know until you experience it. And I would love for all of y'all to experience it at some point in time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And kind of on that point, right? Like, for those of you who are at Deer Run, we were just talking about that too, how we get to know God so much through creation and also through people around the world. Like, we learn so much about God from experiencing other cultures. So, Cameron, how did you see God work in and through some of the people that you met on this team? Any specifics?
I would say, so there's the house that we went to the first day to put the roof on. It was an older man. He was 85 or so. I mean, a character, like just cut up and was hilarious. And his daughter, so he lived in this house. He lived there for 60-something years, I think they said. And his daughter built a house beside him. His other daughter built a house, so they all lived together right there. But his roof was just run down, holes in it, leaking terrible. So they had torn the old roof off by the time we got there. So we built the rafters, the metal, everything. And that man, when he wasn't there at first, his daughter was. And his daughter jumped right in with the construction crew, and she was throwing boards up on the roof and doing everything to help. That's him right there in the yellow shirt.
Yep.
He's hilarious, I'm telling you. But he came up to me. He kind of came to everybody, and he was at the doctor, I think, when we first got there, and he showed up. So he went around to kind of say hi to everybody, and he came up to me and started talking, and he had a, 5-10 minute conversation, and I just smiled and nodded the whole time. I had no idea what he was saying, but I knew exactly where he was coming from, and it was all about being thankful. And that's the man that told me once I got an interpreter over there that he has nothing, but with God, he has everything he needs. And that's just, it was crazy to see all, how thankful he was. And then later on that night, so the weather when we went, Blaze and I had talked about it a couple days before, it was an 80 to 90% chance of rain every single day we were going to be there. So we knew we were going to have to do these projects. We're thinking we were going to do it in the rain, all this. Never rained a single drop on us when we were working.
That's incredible.
The weather was fantastic. It was not humid, 75, 80 degrees, until we got home just about every night, and then the bottom would fall out. So at the end of that day, and we're in our meeting at the end of the day talking about it, and it started raining so hard that we could not hear each other. We were screaming at each other, and then we're just all laughing about it. And it just hit me. We had gone back and delivered a food basket to this man's daughter. So we got to see him again. And he was moving all of his stuff back into his house and getting ready to go in and move back in with his new roof and all that. And it just hit me during that rainstorm, like how good must that feel to have that restart. And that's his house right there. To go back in and be dry during this monsoon of a rainstorm that we're having right now, where before it was filling his house up with water. So to be able to have the weather hold off like that, it's just a huge God moment all week.
Man, that's so many moments of God's power throughout that. I love that. That's our God, Like, he's so much bigger than we can even imagine. It's just incredible. Wade, was there a specific moment that really stuck with you or changed the way that you think while you were there?
Yeah, there were, number one, there were several moments that we had while we were up there where I was, I couldn't quit saying wow. That was my most used word. I think I was just like, wow, this is unreal. This is crazy. The scenery and the people's commitment to do things. But to me, it was the fact that the whole trip, there was no, I guess, we get around here and, I can't do this because of this, and I'm making an excuse as to why I can't do something. I can't go see somebody, or I can't stop. And they don't do that there. If they find a way to get it done. They find a way to get the job done because it's important. And it didn't matter that there was a language barrier. We figured it out. The guy needed something. He pointed at it, and you could tell by his tone that it was important that he needed it and that he got it now. And the other thing I think that was really important is that we all understood when we went, we were not in charge at any of these sites, nor did I want to be in charge at any of these sites. And I think, again, That's something that back here we try to too much of, is everybody wants to be in control. And there we knew who we were following. The guy that was in charge was going to tell us what to do, and everything ran so smooth. And I think if you relate that back, you know, if we quit trying to be in control and we let God control our lives, that things are going to run so much smoother once we get to that point. You know, when we just let go and say, hey, we're just going to follow you blindly, and things are going to work out. And I think that was the biggest moment. And, you know, just kind of piggybacking, another thing, just piggybacking off Blaze and the community, you know, it would take us an extra 15 to 20 minutes to get places, because we stopped and talked to everybody along the road. I mean, we just stopped and we would have a conversation, or we would pick people up and drive them while we were doing the water baskets. These ladies and a newborn baby, I mean, the baby probably 6-7 months old, and she was walking up the mountain. I see y'all. And she was walking up the mountain, and we stopped and we gave her a ride, and I thought, okay, we're close. We were another several miles from where we were going, and she was going to walk up the mountain to get her water filter. You know, again, there's no excuses. You know, we need this water filter, and if it takes me walking up the mountain to get it, that's what we're going to do. And that's really what I took away from it, is that when we just, you know, when we just follow the person that's in charge, you know, everything's going to work out good for us.
That is incredible. And y'all, if you don't catch anything else from tonight, I do want you to hear this. Like, sometimes when we meet people who are different than us, whether they speak our language or not, or we go to different cultures, it's easy to have this mindset, because we want to help so bad, that sometimes we think we know better. We think that our way is best. And this can be a real fault of short-term mission trips sometimes. But what I want you to hear from these incredible people up here, and the way that we're doing this, is we have so much to learn. Like, missions and service is never going to work in other cultures if we don't ask questions, and if we don't learn from the leaders who are already there, from the work that God is already doing. And if we have that humble mindset going in, that we're here genuinely to serve, and we want to ask the questions of how we can help, and not, we know what you need and we know how to fix all your problems and we're going to do everything how we do it in America, but genuinely coming with the point of curiosity and saying, what do you need? Who are your leaders? How can we support them? And that's exactly what he was just saying. I think that is so incredible and powerful. Blaze, how has being back home felt after a big kind of mountaintop experience like this?
Coming back home is tough, to say the least. Being there changes your complete perspective of everything, down from turning your faucet on, stepping in your house, clean clothes, just everything. And it makes you realize how caught up we get in things, stuff that aren't really important. And what really is important is this, you know, community, investing in each other, spending time with one another, slowing down. And we have so many distractions, from this phone I have in my pocket to things that we want to be. Just, it's nice to slow down and not worry about any of that stuff. And it's hard to make that transition, especially I've got 3 boys. And sometimes, I know none of the rest of y'all are, sometimes they're maybe slightly ungrateful for things, depending on what's for dinner or what we got to wear to school.
No, you guys are never ungrateful, right? You're always just like so grateful for everything. Yeah, for sure, definitely.
So, I mean, you just take an average kid's day in Honduras. They have to wake up at roughly 4 o'clock in the morning, take a shower. How many of these kids do you think have hot water? Probably a few, but not very many. They have to get on a motorcycle, they have to walk to somewhere the bus is going to pick them up. And this is not like a little concrete covered area like we see when we go to bigger cities. These are dirt, gravel roads that they're walking down to get to school. And I was doing some research today and reading. After 8th grade, they have to go into the city to go to school. So if they want to further their education out of middle school, they've got to get on a bus and go in the city. And that's roughly a 2-hour drive from the mountain to the city. And put this in perspective. Not all kids get to do that. And the reason why is the cost of transportation. Just transportation to get to school is 35% of the family's income annually. 35% is what it takes to send one kid to school in the city. And once they get out of school, it's a 2-hour bus ride home. To get dropped off from the bus, whether it's raining, 105 degrees, they've got to walk home. And a lot of them are coming to MDM for after-school tutoring to make sure they're making the grades and can continue to get a good education.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? We do. We take for granted that we have opportunity for free education. And it's so like hard to even wrap our minds around that. Thanks for sharing that, Blaze. All right, just 2 more questions before we head to our small groups. Cameron, how have these trips impacted your faith or your perspective?
It's impacted my faith extremely. I mean, my faith is, I've been trying to build my faith up to this point, and I felt like I needed to go on this trip. And thanks to Blaze and Amber and knowing them and being able to get into it, I couldn't be happier that I went. Like, I'm going back every year if I can. So, but yeah, for sure. And like the perspective, like he said, it's everything. It's everywhere that you take for granted. And one thing kind of popped in my mind. So a couple weeks ago, my dad and I were working on a duck blind. So we're building a duck blind, and I'm on the top of it, and we're putting a metal roof on it. Pretty much exactly how we put the roofs on these houses. And I stopped and I told my dad, I said, this duck blind is more elaborate than pretty much any house that I saw in Honduras. Like, you know, we have so many creature comforts here that we take for, I mean, we've got a kitchen and heat and all this. And somewhere we go, on a weekend, and you get mad if you can't get it just right, or you do. And that kind of stuff makes me think, this is ridiculous, like to think this way and be this way. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist in a lot of everything I do, and it puts me in a bad mood a lot of times. And this has really helped me to kind of let go of that and realize it doesn't really matter. Like, it gets done, and it's going to be fine, and that's it, So, yeah, for sure, it's going to change your perspective on your entire life. I mean, it will. And especially if you can get into it being a mindset and not just go on the trip and forget about it. I don't think you could, but that's my mindset now. So as much as I can do.
Yeah, that's super wise and challenging. Thanks for sharing that. All right, last question. Wade, how can we or others support you or possibly join you in this ongoing work and partnership that we have in Honduras?
I think the biggest thing is just like they did. So I'm gonna tell, and I'm bad with names. Like, I am awful with names. The artist up there, Juvenal. I was going over in my head, and I was like, man. So he wanted to start art at MDM, and when he got started, he had one eraser that he tore into 12 pieces so that each student could have an eraser, and he couldn't have small pencils, and he didn't have any paper. And he told us that he made a deal with the newspaper that was around. He said that he would work up there all day long if he could just get scraps to start his art program. And when we brought them, Lord, thousands of dollars worth of art supplies, I mean, he teared up. I mean, it was unreal to him. Just something so simple, the magic markers and the good paper to draw on, good pencils, everything was so important to him. And you're going to meet, if you go on these things, you're going to meet people like that are going to help put your life in perspective, that are going to help change you. Again, one of our team members said that, you think you're changing their lives, they're changing yours, and that's absolutely correct. And I'm going to say to you, whatever the reason is, we can sit up here and we can come up with lots of reasons not to do it, and they're never going to be good enough. They're not going to be good enough until you just set it aside and say, I'm going to do this. This is going to be something that happens. The cost will get covered. At no point in time, somebody asked, mentioned, and at no point in time did I ever feel unsafe up there. Those people had our backs up there. They watched over us, and I went on walks every morning away from where we were staying, and still, people just waved at you. I was probably more afraid of getting trampled by a cow than I was any person up there, because you got to herd some cows out of the way while you're going places. But it was a fantastic moment, and you're not going to regret doing it. So I think at some point you just got to take that blind leap and just go. And I promise you, you'll sit here and you'll remember it forever, and you'll sit up here wanting to tell people about it and talk about it.
Thank you so much. And I think that goes into also just like, that's kind of the root of sometimes why we're scared to serve other people. There's always an excuse, right? Like, oh, they're going to think I'm dumb, or they don't really need my help, or I'm too lazy, or I'd rather do something else, right? Like, whether this is going internationally somewhere, or whether this is just serving your brother or sister, right? Like, we always have a way to kind of come up with an excuse. So I think that's a good challenge for us in general, to kind of have that mindset of service, and then when we say yes, when we can be brave and just say yes to the things that God's tugging on our hearts, and man, He can do a lot with that, more than we ever think. It's really incredible. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. Let's go ahead and give them a huge round of applause. It's so good to have you all here.